So I have this Craftsman All-in-One cutting tool, and it's like a RotoZip. It's a spiral cut saw. Came with all these attachments, one of which is this router base. And I thought it might be cool to build a little table for it and mount this thing underneath and have a little mini router table. It's a 5-amp motor, so it's not the most powerful thing in the world, but for small jobs, it might actually be pretty helpful. I have no idea if this is going to work, but I'm going to give it a shot and I'm going to show you how I do it. The router base that came with the tool doesn't have any mounting holes, so I needed to add some. It's helpful to add a little oil when drilling into metal. I'm using 3-in-1 oil here and it seems to work well. I drilled 1/4-inch holes mainly because the stud on camera tripods is 1/4 by 20. And I have a lot of 1/4 by 20 nuts and bolts laying around from photography projects. I decided to thread the holes so I wouldn't have to use nuts. It seems like dealing with nuts might be a pain in the butt. I can always add nuts later if I think I need them. I've cut my tabletop to 18 by 18 inches, which is completely arbitrary. It just seems like a good size. I found the center of the top and drilled a small hole. I'll enlarge this hole later to accommodate router bits. I put a small bit in the all-in-one tool to help position it, and then I marked the mounting holes and drilled 1/4-inch holes for the mounting bolts. I flipped the table over and used a Forstner bit to countersink the top so that the mounting bolts would sit below the surface of the table. The legs were made from 2x1s and cut to 13.5 inches long. I have a link down in the description to some rough plans if you want to know all the dimensions and whatnot. I cut 4 legs and then an additional 2 pieces of 2x1, each of which will connect a pair of legs. I pre-drilled the holes in the legs and support bars. Each joint got 2 screws. I glued the pieces together, added the screws, and waited overnight for the glue to dry. One set of legs is slightly farther apart than the other so that the legs can fit inside each other. I used one hinge on each set so that the table can fold up, and that's why it's important that one set of legs is larger than the other. I have limited storage space, and this is going to be really helpful. If you aren't so space limited, I'd recommend making the legs a little thicker and making them so they don't fold up. 2x4s would work really well. You could even make a box with solid sides made out of plywood or something. My legs seem fairly stable, but bigger legs are always nice. The screws that came with the hinges were a little too long, but my Dremel tool took care of the excess. To prevent the legs from closing and making the table collapse, I made a support rod that'll go between the 2 pairs of legs. I used a turnbuckle to make it adjustable. Again, I'm using 1/4 by 20 hardware. One side of the turnbuckle has normal right-hand threads, and the other side has left-hand threads. It's hard to find left-hand threaded rod locally, so I just cut off the eye end of the left-hand eye that came with the turnbuckle, and I used that. I replaced the right-hand eye with a long threaded rod. I drilled shallow holes in 2 legs on opposite pairs so that the support rod had somewhere to sit. With the turnbuckle in its smallest configuration, I can fit the rod in the holes, and then by turning the turnbuckle and expanding it, I can push the legs apart so that they stay in place and are more stable. The table assembles pretty quickly. Sorry for the blurry video here, I don't know what happened, but I think you can see how it all gets put together. Here's the very first test of the table. I'm just using a multi-purpose spiral cutting RotoZip bit, but it should work just as well with router bits. Maybe not big fancy router bits, but smaller ones should be fine. So there's the mini router table. I think it turned out pretty nice. I like that it folds up small. I think it's going to be handy for small projects, nothing too big. My next thing I want to do is build a fence for it. And I've come up with a design, I just haven't built it yet. That's probably going to be my next video. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. You can also subscribe to keep up to date with my newest videos. And I am now on Twitter. You can follow me at Makeify1. And thanks for watching.